Okay, so let's talk about Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything. But we're not just going to do a book report here. No, we're going to pull it apart, piece by piece, and figure out what makes this book such a powerhouse. How did it become this absolute phenomenon in science writing?
It really all starts with something like this, a post from a reader on Reddit, and you know what, this question, it just nails it. A brainage. That's the perfect way to describe it. It's that craving for knowledge, that sense of wonder, all served up with total respect for the reader. So the real question is, how did he do it? How did he write a book that leaves people hungry for more? Well, it helps that he started out by admitting he was one of us. This wasn't some brilliant scientist talking down to everyone. This was Bill Bryson, a guy who looked at a science textbook and realized he didn't know the first thing about, well, anything. His journey to understand how we figured all this stuff out is what drives the whole book, and it makes you feel like you're right there with him, learning it all for the first time.
So let's kick things off right where Bryson did, with this massive, almost impossible mission to tell the story of, well, everything.
See, the magic of what Bryson did wasn't just collecting information, it was transforming it. He wanted to answer all those fundamental questions you feel like you should have learned in school but never did. He set out to make the history of the universe feel like a thriller, full of incredible characters, drama, and suspense. So how did he pull it off? Well, let's break down his first big trick. He put the spotlight on the people, the messy, brilliant, often very strange people behind the breakthroughs. I mean, just take Henry Cavendish. Bryson introduces us to this guy who was so painfully shy, so terrified of human contact, he would literally run away from his own housekeeper. And yet, this is the guy who, with incredible precision, figured out how to weigh the entire planet. It's these incredible contrasts, these human quirks, that make the history of science feel so alive. And it's not always about quiet, quirky geniuses. Bryson dives right into the cutthroat rivalries. You've got Gideon Mantell, this passionate amateur who makes these incredible discoveries, versus Sir Richard Owen, a superstar anonymist who was brilliant but absolutely ruthless and basically spent his career trying to erase Mantell from history. It just goes to show you, science isn't some clean, sterile thing. It's messy, it's human. And sometimes the drama isn't about rivalries. It's about the sheer, insane effort it took to discover anything. The 1761 Transit of Venus expedition was supposed to be this amazing global scientific project. Instead, it was a complete and utter catastrophe. We're talking war, floods, hurricanes, you name it. And poor Le Gentile, the astronomer, he has the worst luck in history. After 11 years of chaos, he finally gets home, only to find out he's been declared dead and his relatives have stolen everything. Seriously, you couldn't write this stuff. So that's one part of the magic, the human drama. But let's look at his other superpower, his unbelievable knack for taking huge, terrifying numbers and making them feel small. I mean, think about it. This is the biggest hurdle in writing about science, right? The numbers are so gigantic, they just don't mean anything to our brains. So how do you make someone actually feel the size of the universe? So you see this number, 140 billion. That's the estimated number of galaxies in the universe. On its own, it's just a number. It's totally abstract. What does that even mean? But just watch what Bryson does with it. And this is where the magic happens. He shrinks it all down. If the Earth is a pea in your hand, you can suddenly picture Pluto, the size of a tiny bacterium, a whole mile and a half away. And the next star, 10,000 miles away. All of a sudden, you don't just know the solar system is vast, you can feel the emptiness. That's the difference between information and true understanding. And it's not just space. He does the exact same thing with time. This is probably one of his most famous analogies, squeezing the Earth's entire history into a single day. The first simple life doesn't even show up until the morning. Complex life doesn't really get going until late in the evening. But dinosaurs, they get less than an hour. And us, modern humans, we show up in the last minute and a half before midnight. It's humbling, to say the least. Okay, but here's the thing. Making science this easy to digest, well, it's not always a perfect recipe. And this is where the book runs into some of its most valid criticism. Look, anytime you try to simplify something huge and complicated, you're walking a tightrope between being clear and being perfectly accurate. And sometimes, in the quest for a killer analogy, things can get a little messy. Here is a great example a reader pointed out. On one page, an analogy makes Pluto sound massive, big enough to cover almost half the US. Then, just a couple pages later, it's shrunk down to the size of a bacterium.
Now, both analogies might work in their own specific context, but putting them so close together can definitely make you scratch your head and wonder which one is right. And then there's the stuff that's just, well, not quite right. The idea that old church glass is thicker at the bottom because glass is a slow-moving liquid is a classic science myth. It's a really cool story. The problem is, it's just not true. And for a book that's all about getting the facts straight, little slip-ups like this are something critics definitely latched onto.
But, and this is a really big but, we have to be clear. Even with these little hiccups, the book's legacy, what we can call the Bryson effect, is just massive. It's overwhelmingly positive.
This book did way more than just sell a ton of copies. It tapped into this huge audience of people who were genuinely curious about the universe, but were completely put off by stuffy academic science writing. He basically showed the world, hey, people are starving for science stories told this way. And the proof is right here in what people recommend. You finish a short history, and what do you want? You want more of that feeling. And the books people suggest are all in the same vein. They mix history, humor, and amazing stories. He didn't just write a book. He helped supercharge an entire genre of writing.
But in the end, I think what makes the book stick with you, what really gets you, are moments like this. After this epic journey through time and space and all these crazy characters, he brings it right back home. The stuff we're made of isn't special or rare. It's the same stuff that's everywhere. The miracle, the absolute mind-bending miracle, is that those atoms came together against all odds to make you. And that right there is the real gift of this book. It doesn't just give you a bunch of answers and then you close it and you're done. No, it fills you with a dozen new questions. It just reawakens that sense of wonder. So the book kind of leaves you with a final thought, a final question for yourself. Now that you know a little bit about nearly everything, what are you most curious about next?